Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with something that is really cool, a brand new Hiya Toys Godzilla release. As you can see, this is the Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire, the evolved version of Godzilla. But what this actually is a Stylist series figure. Now, I actually have never had one of these before. I, of course, have reviewed and owned quite a few of the exquisite basic figures, but never have I grabbed one of these Stylist releases. And I've really been wanting them, or at least a few of them, just to kind of check them out for a little while now. So I'm actually really excited about this because it is a little bit of a different style model, you know, not an articulated version from Hiya Toys. And you can see the box art looks really nice. As per usual, Hiya usually does a great job on their box art, showing off a really nice shot of the figure. And then, of course, Godzilla X Kong up here on the top. And then on the side, a shot of the head sculpt of Godzilla. And again, legendary Monsterverse Toho, Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire. On the other side, basically nice shot of the dorsal plates and everything. And then here on the back, you can see another shot of the model as well as some information on this. So let's go ahead, pop the box open and check it out. So here is our Godzilla, and I will say at first glance, it is definitely quite striking. It really does look super cool, and overall has a pretty nice appearance to it. Actually has me pretty excited for the release of the actual exquisite basic version coming at some point in the near future from Hiya Toys, but I think it does look pretty good as a whole as far as the paint apps and of course the fine detail and everything. Definitely looking better than some of the images of other people's that I had seen online. Some people had posted images and I felt like the paint apps of theirs just didn't look that great, but this one definitely looks a lot better in person than I was expecting. You can see the head sculpt looks really good. You've got some very impressive fine detail. There we go. I was going to say you could see if my camera would focus, but it has some pretty impressive fine detail. We also have a nice dark gray for the primary body color and then kind of like some light washes applied, so it has kind of like a khaki wash, which does help to highlight all of the skin texture and everything quite nicely. I really quite like that. You can see, of course, some of the come on, focus camera, kind of like armored spikes and stuff moving down along the side, painted out with a pink, but I will definitely say that the pink paint application is pretty sloppy. Like right here on the side of the face, focus camera, you can see that it's very lackluster when it comes to the application of that paint. So the pink paint doesn't look too great in some areas. I think just a little bit more care could have been taken in that area. Another thing I'm seeing straight away that I'm not a big fan of when it comes to the Stylist series are some really ugly seams, like hideous looking seams right here where the neck connects. Like there was not even a slight attempt at hiding that seam. And when it comes to a stagnant model-like version, you know, some seams are okay. Like I often expect there to be seams in the jawline where you have a model where the jaw has to be connected. You know, sometimes you'll see a seam there, but like I don't expect such an ugly seam in the neck. Like that actually might be one of the worst seams that I've ever seen on a model, especially down here. Like that just looks really bad at the bottom. And as you move up along the side of the neck, it doesn't look like it really gets any better, which is unfortunate because I think the paint application, again, outside of some of those pink kind of like spikes and stuff, looks pretty good and pretty high quality, but you can also see again a very obvious seam where the lower jaw was connected. Normally I wouldn't care so much about that, but that seam as well is pretty obvious, like not even remotely hidden. You can see they definitely didn't even try to cover that up. The inside of the mouth though, wow, look at that. Focus camera, there we go. That is fantastic fine detail. There are a few times where you see the inside of the mouth of Godzilla, and even the inside of the mouth detail looks exactly as I recall it looking on Godzilla in the legendary films. You can see the tongue is also a slightly different shade of a pink, kind of like a lighter pink. There's definitely a nice wash applied in there, a nice gloss coat as well. You can see the skin stretching there on the inside of the mouth. You can also see the teeth are sculpted out, kind of all blended together. They don't look very good, but they look okay, I guess, for what it is. But the paintwork, you can even see over here, looks really bad in the mouth as well. It just kind of blends all of the teeth together. There was just no care taken when it comes to painting the teeth in that area either. The eyes are okay. They have a nice gloss coat and everything to them. They look all right. Definitely better than the teeth, that's for sure. As you move down through the side of Godzilla, the detail does look really good, definitely looks really quite crisp as a whole. As you move up into the spines of Godzilla, you can see two different shades of pink are included up there. They also have some really impressive fine detail throughout. The paintwork, again, isn't absolutely incredible, but it looks alright. I almost feel like some of the areas of the paint of this figure almost look like I would expect on like a knockoff version of a Hiya Toys Godzilla, which is kind of mean to say. It almost looks like the type of paint I would see on like a version if I were to buy a really cheap SH Monster Arts figure, but from AliExpress, because you know it's going to be a knockoff when it arrives, and the paint isn't going to be up to the standard quality of that company that you would expect. You know, like if you're expecting to get an SH Monster Arts and it's only like $30 on AliExpress, you're going to get a bootleg. And obviously, the paintwork of this one isn't quite what I'm used to when it comes to Hiya Toys. Like, looking through, some areas do look really nice. I'm not trying to trash talk it horribly, but some areas, again, just don't look that great. Like, the plates, I think, look okay, but I just kind of expected, I don't know, something just a little bit better. But they look alright, again, for what it is. Like, it's not as bad as the pink here. Moving along this area is really quite sloppy, but up in the plates it looks alright. Sadly, as we move down through the body, the seams do not cease, because as we move down into the arms, you can see there is a really obvious seam for the arm, and I'm going to go ahead and, yep, I assumed it would be the same over here, so you can see, again, same deal on both sides. The seams for the arms are also really quite ugly and distracting for the figure. The paintwork, though, looks okay as you move down, again, with the really dark grayish or brownish sort of tones that we have on Godzilla, as well as the light wash that is applied, which does look pretty decent. You can see as we move down, the hands are sculpted pretty nicely, the fingers as well, and you've got the nails painted with a light tone, and they also have kind of like some darker tips to them as well, so that they have added a little bit of extra variation of color. As you move along the front of Godzilla, you can see all of the fine detail is honestly incredible. When it comes to the sculpts of Hiya Toys Godzillas, I feel like they have got to be some of the best on the market anywhere. They are super impressive when it comes to the fine detail, and the paintwork, I think, when it comes to like the way they've applied the wash and everything, really does bring out the detail quite beautifully. And as you move down along the underside of Godzilla, you can see so much incredible fine detail, even really nice detailing of the skin kind of stretching and stuff on the inside of the thigh leading off of the stomach. Super, super impressive when it comes to the fine detail. As you move up, again, you have all of those very armored sort of scales and everything that you usually see on Godzilla. Again, the nice light wash as you move down. As you lead down into the legs, you can kind of make out the hip bone a little bit right there, as well as the musculature of the leg moving down, and that looks pretty decent as well. I'm trying to see if I can figure out where the seam is for the leg to be connected, because I feel like since I saw it for the arms, it's just got to be here somewhere. So that is definitely a plus. I don't know if that's one, solid piece like the legs were connected. It almost looks like maybe there's a seam right here, but I can't really tell. So if there is, in fact, a seam in the legs, they did a pretty good job, at least as far as this leg goes, at hiding it. But as you move down, you have the kneecap, you can see the calf muscle, and then, of course, a nice-looking foot sculpt for Godzilla, and you can see the toes also look pretty good. The nails also look quite nice as far as the paintwork down here. They have a fairly genuine look to them, which is a plus, and again, even like some brownish tones to the nails, which does look really good. As you move back up here into the tail, we can definitely see the seam where the tail was connected. That is a super obvious seam, but it almost sort of blends in because of that like weird way that Godzilla's tail looks. You can almost, I guess, kind of like disguise it in a way, but you can still see that that is in fact the seam. But as you move down into the tail, you can see again some more variation of color. They've even had a little dry brushing as you lead down with a lighter tone that helps to highlight the detail of the tail, and you have a really nice curve to the tail as you lead out, which is really cool. You can see the curve looks honestly quite epic as you lead down, and of course you have all of the plates and everything, all of the spines of Godzilla that are also painted quite nicely with the pinkish tones, and I feel like at this point it does look pretty decent as far as the spines of Godzilla. I think they look pretty good as far as the paintwork down here, even leading out into the tail, and we continue to have again that nice light tone, that nice light wash highlighting all of the detail of Godzilla the entire way through. Of course, you're going to see pretty much the same thing on both sides. Trying to get a nice look over the leg to see if I can see where the seam is. Again, no, not really, but there is definitely a seam for the foot, which is definitely ugly. I wonder if that was on the other side too. I don't really see it over here. Maybe that's not a seam. I don't know. It looks like a seam, like very much so looks like a seam. I have no idea. It's a mystery to me. But regardless, again, sculpt-wise, it is absolutely a 10 out of 10 if you ask me. Paint-wise, I'd give it about like a 7 to 8 out of 10. But when it comes to the seams, man, they're so ugly. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if all of the Stylist series figures are like this as far as the seams go, but it's definitely a downside as far as this figure goes. But as far as a size for Godzilla, from the tail, and of course you have a strong curve to the tail, to the snout, you're looking at about 10 inches, almost on the dot, or around the 25.5 centimeter mark. And then for a height to the top of the snout, just a hair under 7 inches, or right around 17.5 centimeters on the dot. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Hiya Toys Godzilla. And as you can see, it does have a pretty decent size to it, as your standard Hiya Toys Godzilla figures usually do. But for another comparison that might be a little bit more helpful if you are a collector of the exquisite basic Godzillas, here is Godzilla 2014 next to our Evolved Godzilla, again from Godzilla X Kong. Now this is obviously an exquisite basic versus Stylist series comparison, and you can very clearly see when it comes to the 2014 Godzilla, it is a little bit smaller. But if you bring in the King of the Monsters Godzilla from Hiya Toys, again the exquisite basic version, you can see now that they are roughly the same size. Obviously the Stylist version here, being the Evolved Godzilla, is a little bit thinner. Again, he does have that little bit of a different look to him compared to the bulkier version of like your standard Godzilla, but you can see if you do have this figure, they are of a very similar size. And for one final comparison, just in case you are not a Hiya Toys collector, here is an SH Monster Arts Godzilla, in case you have this figure as well. Again, just to give you one comparison next to this version of Godzilla from Hiya Toys. So this figure is actually pretty cool, but it doesn't come without some negatives. You know, sculpt-wise, it is phenomenal. It is far and away a gorgeous looking version of the Evolved Godzilla X Kong Godzilla. It really does look absolutely drop dead gorgeous from head to tail when it comes to the sculpt, and looks extremely screen accurate as far as what I can tell. When you move through the course of the body, the fine detail is super vibrant, super impressive as well. Again, there is absolutely no shortage of fine detail on this figure anywhere, and is maybe one of the nicest sculpted as far as the fine detail goes Godzilla figures I have ever seen. The paint for the most part is pretty darn nicely done as well. You have quite a bit of variation of color. They've applied some really nice washes and stuff, even some dry brushing in certain areas. There are some areas that I feel like don't have as much life as others. Like when you move into the spines of Godzilla, I feel like it doesn't look quite as realistic as it does when you move down into the skin textured areas. Maybe a wash could have helped that. I think definitely would have helped to highlight the detail a little bit nicer, because they just look a little more flat. But some of the areas of the pink, like the kind of like spikes moving down along the side, the, you know, like scoot-like spikes moving down along the side of the neck and face of Godzilla, are definitely a little bit sloppy as far as the paintwork. Same goes for the teeth, which is a very common trend with Hiya. But for the most part, I would say the paintwork, again, does look pretty good with just some minor complaints here and there. The worst part about the figure, though, are the seams. Now, if this is a common trend, if any of you out there collect the Stylist series from Hiya Toys, and it's a common trend with them, I mean, I may not purchase them too often moving into the future. If these were absolutely perfect as far as the seams go, I would actually really quite like to collect all of them, because I think it's a really neat looking version of a Godzilla. And, you know, if you like articulated figures, you're kind of accustomed to the seams, but if you don't want the articulated figure, you kind of want your Godzilla without seams, but unfortunately you still have the seams, almost making it look in some areas like it should sport articulations. So if they can fix that and kind of give us some more figures like this, but without the seams, I would be very much so interested in this line. It is still a really cool Godzilla, and considering the quality of it for, you know, roughly in like the $50 range, it is definitely still not a bad purchase, no doubt about that. It just, you know, has some things it could improve in the future. But overall, if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine from Big Bad Toy Store. So make sure you check that link, pick it up if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.